This conference will now be recorded.
But those are the ones that exactly.
Here we go. Here we go. It's 6 o'clock. I want to call the planning and zoning meeting to order. Before we get into the agenda, I just want to be clear that we have our council members here. They're not here in an official capacity. They're here as citizens. They will not be discussing this out loud. So I just want to get past that quorum issue that they are here as citizens. Okay? So if everyone will rise, we'll have an invocation. Pledge allegiance. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you for your love and your kindness. Keep us safe. Keep us safe as we travel home tonight. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I hear a motion for agenda approval.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I move to approve tonight's agenda with the 2 changes.
Okay.
The addition of public comments on agenda items following item 4, minutes approval.
So, okay.
And also, I'd like to move to direct staff first thing tomorrow to link the full zoning proposal to today's agenda, even though it's after the fact. It will give the public an opportunity to have that full information without waiting a month for it.
Okay. I have a motion on the agenda approval. Do I have a second? Second. Any more discussion on the agenda approval or changes? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Minutes approval from our meeting October 17th, 2022. I have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
You, I have a second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, Sabrina, I just have a question. I know, I'm sure there's a good reason, I just wondered what it was. During the last meeting, we said that we were going to have a public hearing at the next meeting. Where are we with all that?
Yeah, and I apologize. I sent an email out to everyone, but some did not get it. In fact, they changed our IT, upgraded our system, and it kept some of the planning commission members on that mail server, and others did not. But we did send an email out. We actually, after the meeting, the next day, we had several citizens come in and ask for additional amendments to be added or considered for the planning commission. And because of that, we're going to add it to the next agenda so you can consider their recommendations as well.
Thank you.
Is that issue fixed?
It is, thank you.
Any other discussion on the minutes? All in favor say aye. Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Discussion items tonight.
We're going to get public comments now.
Oh. Sorry. It's following the
I know.
agenda. Sorry. Any public comments concerning the discussion item tonight?
What do you want me to speak into?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think I speak loud enough. Diana Taylor, I live on 7th Avenue North. My biggest concern is wild water and wheels. I understand, I attended the workshop last week where we had several tables and people gave out ideas. Everybody at my table was totally against anything but just having commercial in that Wild Water and Wheels Park. And then I think it was the consensus of the whole group that was there. But my biggest concern is the intention, which I realize is in Horry County, to build high rises higher than 55 feet up to 70 feet. with one parking spot. And there is not a designated buffer zone. And I think if anything you should consider is we can't stop Horry County, but we can certainly control that we have commercial use only in that area and that there's an extended buffer zone. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, okay.
My name is Josh.
Josh, hold on. First and last name and your address.
Josh Batsett. My address, I live in Deerfield.
Okay.
I've lived here my whole life. The water park has always been there. It's always been a nice family, sort of friendly place. You go with your kids, you know, it's fun. I want to take my kids there. I know it's not in great shape. Something needs to be done. The answer is not high-rise condos. We don't want this. Nobody wants this that lives here. These guys don't live here. They don't live in this community. We don't want these condos. We don't want obviously we don't want the congestion, the cars, the runoff, all the things everybody here has already talked about. But what we need to think about is what do we want to do as a community? We call it the family beach. It's turning into very quickly the New Jersey retirement community owned beach, not the family beach. We don't want to just stack. How does that help the community? It's not a dynamic community if we just have a bunch of high-rise condos. Like, oh, maybe we'll get a Starbucks. Great, you know. Maybe we'll get a tropical smoothie. Awesome, but it doesn't add character. It doesn't add quality to our community. We have nice character. We don't want these sterile, black and white, like just boring buildings full of people that don't really know each other or engage in the community. So we don't want it. Please don't do this. Thank you.
My name is Nick Pappas. I live in Harbor Village, which is adjacent to the water park that we're talking about. I see nothing but turmoil for our development. If the planned condos go in, we're not going to be able to handle the additional traffic through our development. We've got 159 homes that take care of our private roads, which will become a thoroughfare to get from the water park to Glens Bay and to the bypass. So I'm going to speak for 159 homes. We're against it. We're not going to happen.
Thank you.
Hi, guys. I think it was very important for, Jamie as well. I actually live in Harbor Village myself, so we're not ISA, B as in boy, ELLE. And we live in Harbor Village also.
Thank you.
When we heard about the selling of the water park, of course, it's very disheartening to our children. And the first thing I asked of my kids is, what do you want to go here? Housing is definitely one thing that, as a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old said that they absolutely do not want. It will create so much more traffic. The traffic that we have already coming through is enough to add more homes, more traffic. It doesn't make it a safe community for our children to run around in the streets and play. She's super nervous to be here, but it is important to see the future of our community, to build these homes, to bring more people. I mean, it's not necessarily bringing in revenue for our town either. Commercial, okay, bring in more things, but we're taking so much away from them and what they can do. I mean, Surfside, the family beach, we moved here from New York, 1999, 2000, and I'm choosing to raise my kids here for the values and what Surfside has been for us, the safety, and just building all these homes. I mean, if you look at Seacroft right behind, regular rain, it floods. They're going to have to do something. The water park parking lot floods all the time. It's just not creating better things. You know, they're going to have to raise the land a little bit, causing more water to go into our neighborhood, and the infrastructure just isn't there. Seacroft is a private community. Those roads aren't even maintained as it is. It's super awful, and it's just gonna cause a lot more problems for our community.
Thank
My name is Mark Wardstalker. I live at 1610 Broken Acre Way, which is in Harbor Village also. My home has been there 25 years and has never had water in it. Hurricane of 2021, no, when Matthew come through, it came close. I noticed on their drawings, their biggest pond, retention pond, is at the back corner next to the Harbor Village, and there's a thing that comes up beside it that's labeled existing pond. If that's where they're planning on their overflow pond going into, my house will have water in it. It's a big pond, but South Bay Lakes pumps theirs down into that. All of Mallard Village has been built since that pond was put in, so it's got that extra stress. Where that pond goes under roads, it's got one little culvert, so the water can't move out. And if they go dumping their water, when they make 100% of that lot blacktop and buildings to where no water is absorbed, it cannot go in that pond over at Harbor Village. It just can't.
you. Thank you.
My name's Marilyn Galati. I live on Vista Drive, Garden City. I don't know where all these people are going to drive that live in that new development that you all have up for zoning. We can hardly get out of the end of our road to begin with on Vista onto 17. Sometimes I have to turn right and go on up and do a U-turn and turn left because there's just nowhere to go. Also, I'm wondering about the infrastructure with schools. I'm a retired teacher. Where are all these children going to go to school? Do we have the infrastructure in place for those children that are going to live in those places? And my other concern is also, like some others, the water park is the only other outside venue that we have for children. We have some putt-putt. You can only play that so many times with kids. But that water park, you can go 3 days a week. It's a wonderful place. It's been there since my kids were little. Now they have kids and I have grandkids. They love to go there. I hate to lose that for more housing that causes so much congestion. We already have those, 300 tiny homes there right across from Woodland. It's a nightmare right now. So I would ask you to please consider not doing this because we love to live here. And living here is a good thing. But when you crowd us up with so many people, when they go down to the beach, when all those people decide where are they going to park, there's no parking down there. So they're going to be parking on all the right of ways, on all the sides of the road. It's dangerous. It's not good for our properties. And I'm not sure what's going to happen there if you allow that to happen. So thanks for considering those things for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Kathy Bruni. I live in the Tupelo Bay Golf Villas, right over the Surfside Beach Garden City lines. And I think we have a little bit of a unique perspective where we are because of the 221 tiny homes that were built without consideration of the environment, without consideration of the impact on the school system, without consideration of the traffic, and we are just not able to get out of Tupelo Bay at all now. It is ridiculous. And this proposal is less than a quarter of a mile up the street. We already can't get out of where we are. We already can't get parking, like she said, at the beach. South Carolina is 48th in education in the country. That's an embarrassment. And just overloading the school systems the way this will do is just making it that much worse. I think you need to pay attention to the heights of the buildings that are being proposed. The last thing we need is more residential property, and you need to pay attention to what your fire chief and police chief said and the concerns that they raised, because those are very valid concerns. And it was heartbreaking to see those 221 tiny homes go in, all for money, because The more they build, the more money Horry County gets. And they took down eagles' nests, we lost deer habitats, the traffic has been horrific, and the water runoff has been horrific. So I hope you seriously look at every component of what's being proposed here and consider the well-being of the people in Surfside and your neighbors right down the street in Garden City. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Johanna Smith. I live on Mill Wake here in Surfside. I guess ditto to what everyone else said. I think my biggest concern is I have no problem with growth. I have no problem with expansion. Everyone has a right to make a buck ethically. But I think the biggest concern I have is we're taking a commercial property that has provided entertainment in a tourist spot that generates revenue for our city, and we're replacing it with a one-time snapshot with no, besides the city taxes. Okay, that's not going to, make up for the revenue that another entertainment site could make. So I really think that you guys need to consider, as well as whoever is in process of getting this done, to just replace that property. If the water park has to go, it has to go. We're in an evolving environment, but replace it with something else that's going to provide entertainment value and continuous revenue for our city.
Thank you.
Shmarek, SHMARUK, 1510 South Hollywood Drive. I used to work for the town, and I haven't in 10 years, but while I worked for the town, we all knew there were water problems on the other side of 17, so I don't know what we did to fix that problem. Well, I don't think we did anything. And when SCDOT made their revisions for Highway 17, they made this just about a hostage to go south. We sit at a light. In the summer, when it's tourist, that food line is busy, maybe one car can get through that light, maybe two the most. So what are we going to do with all this extra traffic coming in? Is SCDOT going to revise Highway 17 again? Are they going to make changes so that make it better for us? If you want to take your kid to school, you have to go south for the grammar school, and you have to sit at that light waiting for it to turn so you can bring your kid to school. How are we going to fix that problem? Because more than likely those kids are going to go to that school. So anyway, that's I hope you guys try to preserve. And the other thing was, while I think of it, we kept our heights lower because we didn't want to become Myrtle Beach. So now we're going to raise our heights. So we're going to stop looking more like Myrtle Beach, keep raising them. So that's my other thing that I have against this whole project. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not intruding on someone else's time, right? But, okay, Josh Pierce. I live on 8 Shady Oak Lane, across the street, so technically not Surfside. The water park's been kind of out the door for a good little while now, at least from what I've noticed. And I mean, they have officially gone under, right? Like that's how I understand it. Yeah. You guys don't get to answer the question. They've gone under. They're gone. The best thing for us in the short term would be to continue to have a water park there, sure. But we don't get that. That's gone now. In the long run, a larger density residential complex like this is definitely a better idea than a small single-family residential complex, because while all of the concerns that everybody here has provided are incredibly valid, I think, with the water and the parking, I forgot where I was going with this. All of the concerns with the water and the parking and driving are all very valid, but single-family homes provide they don't do in the long term for traffic what the multi-story complex does. It allows people to be all in one place. I prefer if this one had mixed residential and commercial, kind of like Market Common does, where the first floor is a commercial space and the above floors are all residential. That would better suit our needs, I think. It would allow us, if we continue to make revenue in the lower floors while also providing additional housing. I mean, we're going to see housing in the long term, whether we like it or not. So I'm all for a denser residential space than a single family home space. So.
Thank you.
Alan Carlson, 15th Avenue South. So his last comment, Market Common, Myrtle Beach. I don't live in Myrtle Beach. Never wanted to live in Myrtle Beach. Let's keep Myrtle Beach out of Surfside Beach, number one. Putting 360 units in there, or 350, whatever it is, 2 parking passes each. Now you got another 700 parking passes. This year was great. I could park at the end of my street all year long. Put 750 more parking passes, more golf carts. I'm not going to be able to park. I know it's selfish, but hey, that's why I live here, and it's okay. And speaking of 17, when they redid 17, of course, they funneled everything down 15th Avenue South, which is a nightmare with the traffic and everything. So they're either, the new place is either going to come out 10th or they're going to come down 15th. And it's just, I can't imagine any town resident that's thinking this is a good idea. So, thank you.
Thank you. There's another public comment in a session afterwards. Yeah, after discussion. I was just saying, if anybody wanted to talk later, but if you want to talk now, go ahead.
I'll be glad to go ahead and start, and then we'll have the engineers come up. Mark Lazarus, I live in Myrtle Beach.
This is just public comment right now. We're not in the discussion.
I'm just,
okay.
I'm gonna give a little history. Okay. My comments, yes, sir. Thank you. Been in the town of Surfside, under the business for a little over 32 years now. We've given a lot back to this town over the 32 years. To answer the young man's question, which I don't know the young man, but thank you for your comments. We haven't gone under. I'm not looking. The water park is at the end of its life. Let me tell you, we put our heart and our soul, our family. This is not a big corporation that owns Wild Water and Wheels. We have always leased the majority of that property. We've owned part of the property. In the last few years, with our landlord, because of the rent that we had, we were able to cut a deal with her to actually buy the property from her and hold it into our family. But the water park itself, quite honestly, everybody says COVID put businesses out. COVID really helped us out because we got PPP money, EIDL money, but that meant that I had to borrow more money to keep Wild Water up. Wild Water has, and you know, this is a private business. It's a family business. It was started by my dad, my mom, my brother, and myself. It wasn't a big corporation. We had one partner in it who, after a year, we bought him out because he couldn't sustain being in the business. We borrowed a lot of money to build that park to begin with. We continued to put money back into that park over the years. We always added something new. First the dark hole, then the 2 speed slides, then we put in a wave pool, then we put in the H2O racer. That was either borrowed money or money out of our pocket. And you know, anybody can say what they want. I still have a significant amount of debt. I'm not selling this because I'm going to get rich and I'm going to go retire. That's not the case. The case is I'm going to pay off the debt. It is over on that property. I'm going to pay our taxes. My dad, unfortunately, my mom passed a year ago. My dad's left with the asset that's there, which is all the buildings and slides and things. He's got a pretty significant tax consequence that he's gonna have, for our family, that we're gonna have to pay too. It's not the best time to have to sell, but it is in a position that we either put good money after bad, or we do something with the property. We're not doing it. We're not the developer. We're actually selling it to an outside developer that's in that business. I'm not in that business. I'm not in the commercial development business. I sell a lot of real estate, but it's mostly real estate that is vacant. This is something that's heartbreaking in our family as much as we put into it. The lady that brought her child up here, God bless you. I feel my grandchildren, my children, the day we opened the park, my new daughter was just born, and she came into the park in her stroller. My kids grew up there. My grandkids have gotten to go there. It's heartbreaking to us. If it was generating revenue to where we could sustain it, I'd keep it open, but it's just not viable. Ladies and gentlemen, over the years, a lot of things have happened. You know, the cost of doing business has gone up, as we all know, tremendously. It's harder and harder to get employees. In the COVID time, it was really tough. You know, the schools are going back earlier. They're getting out later, which you take a 100-day season that we traditionally always had is down. This past year, I don't think we got 65 full days in that water park. You've got campgrounds that, you know, were major feeders that all have their own little water parks that keep the people in. There's been a tremendous amount of issues that have come that have been imposed on us in that business. Yeah, I would love to keep it open. I really would, but it's just not possible. But I can tell you, and we'll be putting out a press release. Somebody said, when's the water park going to give the answer? I can go ahead and tell you now. I can look at all you citizens and tell you the water park's not opening back up. I don't have a buyer. I've tried for 3 years or more to try to get some big major corporations that are in the amusement park business to come in and invest. They wouldn't do it because the numbers are not there.
Sir.
The numbers are simply not there.
Mark,
Yeah, I'm
we
sorry.
have a time limit. Sorry,
Okay, I'm
sorry.
sorry. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Whatever
long story
you,
short,
whatever you got,
I'll get
you
back
say
up.
until afterwards.
Sure.
Thank you.
Long story short, I appreciate your time. We need to work together and figure out what, you know, the development is. I think the engineers have put together a great development. You will see, answer a lot of the questions about water,
Yeah,
runoffs and height and all
We'll be
that.
getting into that here
Yes,
in
sir.
just a minute.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, I will close the public comment section. Now we are on to discussion. Wild Water and Wheels rezoning request from amusement plan development and highway commercial zoning to planned development. You ready?
Sorry, my little clicker doesn't work tonight, so I'm gonna have to stand up here. Okay, I'm not gonna read all of this because it is in your packets, but I did go through after we sent the planning commission packets out. We actually went through our archives and got the background for the current Wild Water and Wheels, when it was established. Planning commission actually approved an ordinance to allow for amusement park plan developments. You have that in your packets. You can see there were several public hearings on the rezoning to the current water park. And on September 19th, 1989, Town Council approved second reading to zone 2 parcels to the current Wild Water and Wheels. This is just a vicinity map. You can see where the flea market is. A and B, and that's just for location purposes only. Those two have been rezoned since 1989 to Wild Water and Wheels. There is an error where you see the B up at the top, that little square. That is not part of the water park. That's actually the town's water tower, and it's not zoned PD. The parcel C that you see there tonight, they are requesting that that be a part of the new plan development, which is mixed use. That's where part of the multifamily would be located. That's not currently, it is used for the park, for parking purposes, but it's not part of the current PD. And just a side note, I know someone mentioned that the condo or the proposed multifamily would be in Horry County, and that is not the case. This entire plan development is proposed to be in the town limits of Surfside Beach. This is actually a rough copy of what was approved by town council back in '89. You can see A and B. A shows the water park and the uses. B is the parking, and C, of course, is what they're asking for tonight to be included. And then in November 19th of 2001, council approved the closing of a portion of Sandy Lane and what was another portion of 8th Avenue North. And then you see, it was a U. I had no idea it was a U, but it was, and they closed it. And Mr. Lazarus paid for that right away. So if you look at our town's comprehensive plan, you know we're redoing that right now. The kickoff for the new comprehensive plan will be next month. But the future land use map right now located shows this area as highway commercial. Town council in 2015, after receiving a unanimous recommendation from planning commission, moved to remove all residential uses from the highway zoning commercial district. It was noted that it was to preserve the commercial district for commercial uses would help promote economic development growth and possibly attract larger retail businesses and restaurants. And the planning commission and council agreed commercial development was the highest and best use for the Highway 17 corridor. The requested changes, the applicant requests plan development be changed from amusement plan development to mixed use plan development, which is multifamily commercial. You all have that in your packets, and I do have a layout of it coming up shortly. The current zoning does require for at least 2 of the following, which is 1 or more principal use land use, which they are proposing. They're proposing commercial and multifamily. Separate land use, which would not otherwise be permitted or located within the same zoning district, and the exceptions or variations to the site or design dimensions. What they're proposing does meet those requirements. Okay, so the breakdown of land use, and you'll find this in your packets under Form 1. The commercial district is 2.28 acres, which is fronting on Highway 17 on the frontage road. Residential districts, 14.34 acres. Percentage of projects, commercials 13.7 and residentials 86.3. Units or square footage, commercial units is 40,000 square feet, and the residential that they're proposing is 335 units. Lot standards, which is also found on Form 1 in your packets. The minimum lot width they're proposing for both commercial and residential 60 feet. The setbacks are also being proposed as the same as front 20, sides 10, rear 15, and the height 70 feet for both residential and commercial. Currently, requirements in highway commercial for C1 is 60 on the front minimum lot width. The frontage on 17 or the frontage road is 75 feet in our current zoning ordinance. There is no side setback requirements, but you are required to have an alley or a clear side yard or 20 feet, so the fire department can get back there. The rear is 20 and the height is 55 feet. So the proposed multifamily parking requirements found on Form 1, they're proposing 1 space for 1 bedroom, 1.5 space for 2 bedrooms, 2 spaces for 3 bedrooms, and guest parking will be provided as 1 space per 5 units. Our current parking requirements for residential, including multifamily, is 1 space per bedroom. And you can see by our definition, the town's definition of a bedroom, it's almost everything except the kitchen and the living room or great room and dining room. Everything else is considered a bedroom. That's not how they're defined, the plan development. Also in the zoning ordinance, any use proposed by the development and considered by the planning commission and town council as compatible to the nearby uses within and beyond the district may be permitted in such district. So basically, the planning commission has to review the uses proposed for this plan development and determine if the proposed uses are compatible with other nearby uses. If you'll look in your packet, the commercial portion of the proposed project include short-term and long-term rentals, mini storage and storage facilities, and this was a request that was recently denied by town council on parcels fronting on 17 within the last year. It does list a cell tower, water towers, public facilities. The cell tower is currently located there, and of course, if it's rezoned, it would be grandfathered. And the water tower that's there now is not even located in the existing plan development. And any of these would have to meet the requirements of the other sections of the code, which is distance and height. This is just the existing cell tower and the water tower that's there. And it's located in the rear of the property where the residential would be located. Transportation improvements under fire, EMS, and police. The applicant states there should be no significant impact based on change of use as it is an existing amusement park. You'll find in your packets the Surfside Beach Fire and Police Department have each submitted their professional opinions on the impacts the multifamily will have on each department. And both departments feel the addition of multifamilies would have a significant impact. The daily average trips they've delivered to our office, multifamilies 2,680 average daily trips. That's at build out, and then commercial 600 average daily trips. This is the site summary, and if you could, excuse me. Okay, as explained before, this is actually the plan development now. It's been approved. This is the highway commercial property that is being requested to be added into the multifamily area of the new plan. It's just another site plan showing where the commercial district would be, which is on frontage road here, and then everything else would be residential. And that's the actual layout that they're proposing. So this is the frontage road. This is the commercial area that would be a little over 2 acres, and then everything in the back would be multifamily. And they can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but the exits would be here on Sandy Lane. So you would have 2 forms of exits. You'd have Sandy Lane or the frontage road, which is 17, which does have a light. And the construction timeline. So what they're looking at is late winter, spring of 2023, engineering and design. Spring and fall would be permitting, and then the winter through 2023 through the summer of 2024 is when construction would begin. That's all I have. I know David Swartz here. He's a planner with the owners. I think the engineer's here as well. So, oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So if you have any questions directly for the planner for them, you can certainly ask them. If you have any questions for me, I'll be glad to answer them as it comes, okay? I know he'd like to speak. Yes. That's okay. I hope I can figure it out. That one?
That's good.
All right. You want this?
Sure. Hello, my name is David Schwerd, and I'll face you since I'm speaking to you. And if anybody has any questions after the meeting, I'll be glad to stay and try to answer some of them. We're here tonight to talk about this project. We're very well aware of the comprehensive plan and the very many valid arguments that were presented tonight. So first I want to go over the plan itself so that we can address some of those questions. What we have here is a planned development district with the 2 commercials, 2.25 acres on the front of commercial, as per the town of Surfside, saying that they wanted to protect commercial on the corridor, and I recommended to those that were looking at developing properties that we maintain that commercial nature, not only for those residents in the town of Surfside, but also for the residents that are going to be in this apartment complex. So this particular building, we have the height of 70 foot in there because of the fact that currently with the amusement structures over there, we wanted to maintain that height. The buildings, and we're more than happy to add that restriction, these are 4-story buildings. So all the buildings that are on this site are 4-story buildings. Valid concerns that were brought about stormwater. We were very well aware of some of the concerns that we have, and with my former role and reviewing stormwater and planning for the entire county, I'm very well aware of the issues that we have in this location. And one of the things that we did is this area here. Currently, there's a cell tower in this location. And so what we've done is we've set back from that cell tower to make sure, because it's an older tower. We wanted to make sure to protect future residents, to make sure that we don't build within a potential fall zone on that tower. As part of that, what we also did was looked at the stormwater. This pond that's up here is the only existing pond that's really serving the site. There's a small one that's down here in the middle. That entire site right now is 98% impervious as it stands right now. There is no water seeping into the ground. It is all running off the site. Pools are designed to be full and they hold no water. That water is pumped out and gone, and it's on its merry way as soon as it falls, so that it doesn't affect the chemical balance of the pools. And also they're all made out of, impervious materials. But what we did was we knew there was concern with stormwater as it runs back in this direction. So we actually doubled the size of the stormwater system in this community. So you can see there's the existing pond, there's an additional pond that's added. So we've actually doubled the amount of storage that's on the site. And in fact, we may end up having to dig this pond a little deeper and even increasing the amount of storage that's located in that site, depending on what we find in the water table. So we're well aware of that. Plus this site, you can see all the areas that now are created as pervious. There's a lot more area for the water to soak into the ground in this plan than exists in the current amusement. Right now, if you were to look at the aerial, you'll see the entire thing is paved over all the way to the property line. And as to the residents who live back here on the back, we're aware of that. Currently, the property line literally is inches off the back of the asphalt. We're proposing pulling that asphalt back off the property line. This additional landscape berm and buffer that's already there, there's like a 10-foot berm that's part of the development that's behind us, that has all those mature woods and stuff. All that stays is not on our property. We're not touching it. But in addition to that, we're going to set back another 10 feet, and that'll be a landscape buffer that's on this site. So we will have to install landscaping as part of this project. The two exits, as she discussed, are in these two locations here. This is an existing 3-lane entrance. Right now, it's kind of rough. It's hard to see the striping. All that will have to, of course, be brought up to code. We will provide shared access for the commercial lots along the back so that if you can get into here, you'll have access to both parcels. It's not like we're having both parcels have separate full access out to the frontage road. As far as the location and layout of the buildings, we laid the buildings out so that fire could get to all sides of the building. It's very important, especially when you're dealing with these kind of structures, to be able to get around all points of the building. And there is the International Fire Code would require that they be able to get to all 150 feet within all points of the building. So we laid that out in the design. As far as this access goes here, you can see we have put an amenity in the middle here. In terms of pools, internal to that, they have their own location. There's going to be their own set of resort amenities, fitness stuff built in within these units in their buildings. We want to talk about, the amount of dollar values and the density. One of the reasons we went with a 4-story building is that we know that in the comp plan that is shown as commercial. And the reason for that is protecting the value that property can generate for the town is one of the reasons for it. With this density on this similar size project, just as a tax value estimate, current tax record on this property between the 3 properties is about $6 million in value is being taxed at. This similar size project, including the commercial, is going to run you about $46 million in tax value. So there is additional revenue, and it's an ongoing revenue that isn't going to rely on how good a season is in terms of accommodations or things coming from the water park. That's going to be a revenue that the town will have access to every year. The commercial up front is still there to serve those, to reduce some of the traffic. There was discussion about, well, we should leave it all commercial, but then there was discussion there's too much traffic. Well, commercial is going to generate about 300 trips per acre. So you're talking 16 acres, twice as much trips. So you're talking well over 4,000 trips that are going to be generated in terms of traffic, twice as much as this project. This project does have access to the signal that was installed by DOT as part of the frontage requirements. It meets the amenities. We're now aware of the mini storage. Mini storage really doesn't fit on these 2 parcels anyway. We're more than happy to remove that from our list of uses in that location. I mean, it's really 2.25 acres. It's not really well suited or designed for that aspect. There'll probably be accessory storage built inside of the apartment units, buildings to capture that use anyway for storage of bicycles, beach stuff, things like that. So we can remove those kind of offensive uses out of the commercial if that's something, and then the town has more control and they don't have to worry about it. The reason they're listed there now is that's what's listed in your commercial district as an allowable use. All we did was copy those allowable uses. So if there's any feedback on which uses you'd like to see, I'm more than happy to discuss those with project owners in the future, see what they'd like to do. Like I said, we've significantly increased the amount of pervious area. We've increased the amount of stormwater. The parking standards that we have put up are the same standards that are used in just about every other jurisdiction in Horry County, and have worked and suited well for apartment development. There hasn't been a lot of that here in Surfside, so what we did was propose one that would work for an apartment complex. It does have the guest parking that's associated with it. A lot of these units are 1 and 2 bedroom units, so you're not talking about a lot of large families going to be living in most of these units. They're not a bunch of 3 bedroom units. They're going to have that demand. So, as far as traffic, when it gets time, if this project moves forward, I'm certain that this commission, when I come back for the actual vertical construction, will ask for a traffic study and full blowout and things of that nature at that point. We'll work with DOT. I've been working with transportation in this county for over 20 years, so I know this intersection, I know this frontage road, and if there's things that we can do inside this project or even around the project, we're more than happy to accommodate them. There was concern about traffic going off, and I'm not saying they won't. That's individual driver decision, but Sandy does go straight out. So if you're taking a trip out of that, more than likely it's people cutting through, coming the other way and going back through, not people that would live on the property. So with that, I don't know if you want to ask any questions specific to this project. Design, I know tonight's a workshop, and I look forward to having that opportunity to discuss any of those concerns, design issues, things that we might be able to incorporate into the project.
I mean, I have a question. You mentioned that this would be more pervious than, say, what the water park would be.
That is correct.
Does that, there's a significant amount of parking. Do you have some type of pervious material that you'll be using for the parking lots, or?
We haven't. For instance, all this greenery here, all that location right there, all this location here, this right here, all that's all paved over right now.
Right.
So we're actually removing that amount.
Right.
So whether we do additional in here or not, it's still going to be less than it currently is. I'm not saying we won't do it. There might actually be a design feature that we incorporate for environmental concerns.
Yeah.
I can't say that we will, but I can 100% say this is a reduction probably about 5 to 10% over what it currently is in terms of how much more pervious it will be, which is fairly large, and we've doubled the size of the stormwater system capacity. So we're actually going to be significantly reducing the amount of water that currently leaves that site, because we know the fact that the upstream sites have dumped a lot of water in that neighborhood, and we want to be able to hold more of it back. So trying to resolve issues that we can through development. We know there's concerns about what development can create.
Any other questions?
During our discussion, do we reserve the right to ask questions as they come up, or is this our only opportunity to ask questions?
Can we get an opportunity to ask questions?
So you mentioned the presumed market value of $46 million versus 6 today. I think on the properties, probably right now the property taxes in the $12,000 range. If I look at the 2 hotels along the beach here, they ironically add up to a 2021 value of $46 million. And their collective city tax, not the entire property tax, is $47,000. So that's an increase of city property taxes of $36,000 for this project. But the city also loses HTAX on admissions from the water park, which is an unknown variable. I think there's a FOIA request out there seeking that number. So all things being equal, this actually looks like it's a revenue reduction, assuming a reasonable attendance at the water park. I don't know that number yet. But if I look at the town's just basic services like safety, grounds, street, comes to about $6 million. Right now, we've got about 4,700 taxable properties. So that comes out to about $1,300 town cost per property. So anybody in the town that owns a property, you get about $1,300 of services. That includes trash pickup, your proportionate share of police, fire, et cetera, et cetera. If these are taxed at $47,000, all of a sudden that creates a couple of $100,000 of negative impact to the town per year based upon a proportionate share of per residence services. Now granted, if there's a high density approach, your proportionate share shrinks, but not to the tune of eating up. If I do 335 properties times the $1,300 town service per residence, whether it's a condo, townhouse, apartment, that comes to a little over $400,000. So the annual cost to the town is $400,000, all things being equal. The income at best might be even by counting the new taxes and subtract out the H taxes going away, not even factoring in the likelihood of some new equipment for the town. This seems like a huge annual burden financially. Just looking at numbers, just math. So to say it's worth $46 million and it's going to increase tax value, I think that's a little bit of a narrow view of the total impact this project will have. If I didn't want to look at it in a linear way and use it as a per person analysis, you're adding about 20 to 23%, quite closer to 20% to the town's residences, and you're adding less than 1% on the town's $20 million plus revenue. And that's like reverse gearing. Like if anybody here at this table were making an investment that said, you're going to put in $20 a year and get a dollar back, and that's going to happen every year, it just doesn't make sense, the math to me. And so I'm hoping that there's some caveat that I'm missing in my analysis that makes the math a little more clear. Right now, it's tough to look at just the economics of this for the town.
I would be glad to review your economics with you and
Sure.
go over those lists. I think the biggest change is that this infrastructure that's in here is all private infrastructure. The maintenance to the town, roads, that's not.
It's true. Yeah.
So there's a significant reduction in that, and knowing somebody, and I actually helped craft the impact fee ordinance for the county, knowing how much roads are as a portion of what those budgets are, the fact that the majority of that infrastructure, all this is going to be private, that there's significant upgrades that this is making to the stormwater system, which will probably reduce the amount of improvements that are going to have to be made downstream because of that. I think some of that's going to be offset, depending on how these develop up here, if they're restaurants, or you have to imagine some of those are going to be restaurants with services that are going to have those kind of taxes. And also the fees that are generated by hospitality taxes are limited in the way they can be expended versus the way that general fund taxes that are collected can be expended. So you have a little more flexibility in terms of the income that comes in, but I'd love to go over numbers because I really enjoy them. Doing it in front of a crowd, I haven't done that since I taught calculus. So.
That's fine. Let me just, a couple of points of clarification. The town actually doesn't spend a lot on asphalt. A good chunk of the roads are actually state-owned. It's a couple $100,000 a year if you net out the grants that we get back from the state. So the asphalt maintenance is less of a concern. The H-tax, how it's allocated expense, is less than, because we've got plenty of expenses that H-tax can absorb. And I think that'll manifest itself for us residents as not having a section of sidewalk put in because those dollars are being spent elsewhere, i.e. this.
You know, there are funding streams the town can review in order to capture that.
Yep.
Which we can discuss.
Yeah, it would be great, whether.
And whether it's related to this project or not, I'll be happy to come back and talk to the commission about those types of requests in terms of, you know, things you can move forward with.
I'd rather not do it one-off.
But this
Just do it in
particular
the public
project
setting.
itself, in terms of the project, I can't go over the numbers with you until we look at it together. But as far as the layout and design, I don't know if there's anything we can do in that. Like I said, I discussed removing some of the uses that had previously been turned down. I'm more than happy to do that.
If the commercial spots are a 20-foot setback, that's been proposed on frontage there. That seems that it would just be parking space for cars heading straight into the building, kind of coming in 90 degrees from frontage or the face of the commercial structure.
Yes, so the commercial that's located here is the equal size to the existing commercial that's to the right of it in terms of depth. That's how we matched it up with the road. It would allow for a double row. 20 foot is just a minimum because there's flexibility in design. This commission is going to have a chance to review that stuff when it gets submitted for development. As far as the way it's laid out, it would be able to accommodate a double row of parking typically on a commercial lot.
Building and frontage.
And a landscape buffer. I would assume you would want to definitely include that. I would, if I was putting out a good product, is put up a landscape buffer along the front. Like I said, we want to limit access on this parcel to this access here. If any access here, it would end up being just one out, and then a shared access across the two. The reason the commercial's there, and when we were laying it out, I definitely had to convince people to keep the commercial in the front because I think it's valuable to the town, and I'd like to keep it there. I think it's a good aesthetic for the town, and it also captures trips. And maybe there's a pizza place or something that goes in, and when you order DoorDash, they get to go straight back instead of get caught in traffic. So the more services we can capture, as was talked about by the one speaker, the less times they actually have to get out on the roads. The more things that we can provide them, whether it's fast casual restaurant or deliveries or even office services. That's what that's there for. But it's definitely deep enough to accommodate landscaping, a double row of parking, a building, and a loading area on the back.
Why would you submit the proposal with a 20-foot setback when you're not going to need a 20-foot setback?
To provide flexibility in design. So 20-foot setback, maybe part of the building is at 20 foot, and maybe the rest of it is at 80 foot. You have control over that when it comes in for design review. So that's why a PDD is designed specifically and required by the state to have flexibility and standards. So we incorporated that flexibility knowing full well that this commission has the ability to review the actual design. Sometimes you write things in black and white and you create a regulation that develops while it's uniform is unattractive. And this one allows flexibility. Same thing as the 70-foot height limit. If you want us to limit it to the 4 stories that's in there, the reason it's that way is because the way the PDD is currently written, that PDD allows the amusement uses to continue to operate. Now you heard tonight that that particular operator isn't going to be able to continue operating. That doesn't mean some future person wouldn't. This PDD would allow for that use to continue. And what it does do is allow those heights of those structures to be maintained. If you want to put that residential structures that are built within it, we can amend that dimensional standards table to say that residential uses that are built within it are limited down to that height limit of 4 stories. So that's what a PDD does. It offers you the flexibility to craft an ordinance that works the best. Now, keeping it residential or not keeping it residential, that's a whole policy decision that I can't address in my land use design. What we're trying to do with this design is address any of the design comments that we can. And if there's written language that we need to address, I'm more than happy to accommodate, like I said, restricting the height of the buildings down to the 4 stories on the multifamily. So, but the answer is 20 foot is there to provide flexibility, knowing that the commission has the ability to say, no, we'd like that building at 50 instead.
Yeah, it said that in the proposal, no expected traffic concerns. And
As
has
I-
anyone looked at, I think it's 17 Business and 10th Avenue South? Right there, that's actually in the lower.
Mhm.
That's a tough intersection as it is right now.
And when we're discussing what we see as concerns, it's this design versus another design that's commercial in nature. If we continue to operate it as amusement, there's a level of traffic that's generated, not as much as the owners would have liked, otherwise it probably would continue to operate. But if it was operated as an amusement park that was going full bore and we had a longer than 65-day season and there was other rides or amusements added in, which are potentially allowed under the current PD, then traffic could go up under the current use. So what we're looking at is what the traffic would be if it was existing, built out, fully run amusement park. We look at it as if it was fully built out commercial. And like I said, if it was fully built out commercial, that parcel would generate at least twice as much potential traffic. If you went all trade shops, it would be a less. If you went full retail, like a Walmart style, which it is large enough to accommodate, you'd be talking 3 times as much, not twice. So that would be dependent on the uses that you use for the review, but a typical number is about 300 units, 300 trips a day for a commercial per acre. And this one runs about 6. And that's based on GSAT's modeling that we use for all of our transportation planning in Georgetown counties.
2,700 thereabouts, average daily trip for the residential. So that's 3,200 ADRs per day for the whole. What does the water park do now?
Nobody has a current accurate trip count in terms of how many trips come in and out of it as it exists, because plan started designing this as the water park was closing up, so there was no way to capture those trips. I have requested a copy of the SCDOT traffic study that was done as part of the redesign. If I get that, I hope I'll have it in hand before the next meeting. That section of the frontage road was designed to handle probably 16,000, 18,000 trips a day. I don't know what it handles currently, so that's something we'll have in hand. And like I said, if it gets approved, we obviously would have to do a full traffic study prior to actually submitting the engineering design for the planning commission to review at that point. Thank you.
I was gonna, you were talking about height limits. And I guess I'm curious why we need 70 feet for a 4-story building.
We do not, like I said, I'm more than happy to amend that down. That was left in there for the amusement structures, which are allowed in both sections of the project. And we can definitely add into that PD. And that's the beauty of this workshop system, is that we can discuss those areas of concern now and have it amended by the time that the next meeting rolls around. 4 stories is what we're looking for. So we don't need 70 foot. That was put in there to maintain the existing.
Yeah, no, you don't. It's about 45.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
43.2 to be exact.
we're more than happy to amend that restriction in there. That was left in there so that amusement structures can maintain that height.
What are these, I'm sorry.
These units that will be selling over there, they're gonna be, are we looking at rentals? Are we looking at primaries?
Currently, I'm
Don't really
not the end
know.
user, but in discussions with the end user, they're looking at rentals. And we're looking at between $1,600 and $2,200 a month.
So we're looking at transient, monthly, weekly.
No, these are monthly,
Annual.
long-term,
Okay.
6-month final leases. These aren't short-term rentals where you turn over every weekend or every weekend.
Go ahead, Scott.
Okay. You mentioned amusement structures, and is it Diamond Shores?
Diamond Shores is the engineering and planning
Okay.
agency on this, not the developer. We develop lots of projects, but not this one.
So when you were planning this project, I assume you had several different ideas, brainstorming, hey, we could do this, we could do that. Clearly, the town, me personally, my nephews and nieces, they love your park. And it hits me in the gut to see it go. Seeing the plan, you mentioned amusement structures. Did you ever have a plan for leaving a portion of the water park or that type of idea? And then, I mean, you're adding on, you're trying to develop even farther than what the current plot is, right? There's an extra little section. Where
This
little seven.
this
active
section
seven.
here, actually, that is currently used as part of this park. It's not part of the PD. Even though the zoning map did show it that way, it isn't part of it. It wasn't included in the records. Unfortunately, the records from a long time ago aren't very accurate and clear. But it is currently used as part of the park. It's an entirely paved over parking lot.
Right.
So it is part of the park while it's not currently part of the PD.
I see this as a wonderful revenue source. I mean, amazing. In your planning, did you ever even consider keeping part of the park and just adding the 1T and the 1.7?
We did not. The thing with a multifamily is you have to reach a certain number of units before it really becomes attractive for a management company to operate it.
Right.
And that's kind of what we were shooting for. You really have to be between 250 to 300 before you get to a national level of unit counts.
Right.
So we did look at less units. We've looked at more units. We think this is the best mix of those two units. It may end up coming out a few units less by the time we get to final design, depending on the amenities that are added, in order to create an attractive product for the consumers to want to rent.
And what were the amusement structures that you had mentioned?
Well, there's a large, this pool looks small, but that's a large pool in scale.
Community.
It's community pool structures. This is an open amenities. The
But only
amenities,
for the residents.
the amenity, yeah, correct. The amenities I was discussing are the amusement structures I was discussing for the height. This PD allows the amusement park to continue to operate in the future. Say a person buys this property and they decide it's not really the right time to go ahead and start building multifamily. We might want to wait a year or two. This provides them the opportunity to continue to make upgrades or operate that park if they so chose to. So the PD allows that flexibility. It doesn't get rid of the park itself. It allows it to remain as an allowed use, which allows it to be continued to maintained and or upgraded. If they choose to develop it residential, it'll come back before this commission at that point, and you'll have the opportunity to review the actual site plan, the parking plan, the traffic plan, and the landscape plan, and require elevation drawings of the building to make sure that it's an attractive building that matches the kind of thing that you would like to see in this town. And I will make sure that the people who are looking at take that into consideration to see if there's a way that can be incorporated.
Please.
I don't know that it will, because it's expensive to operate an amusement.
Right.
And obviously, if it could have been operated and it's been operated for a long period of time, I'm not sure a scaled down version will serve the same purpose.
Yeah. I just know that personally, somebody spoke to me and said, that's the best water park in this area. They've been to other water parks farther north, and they said, quote unquote, it's disgusting. And, this is such an icon. It's a wonderful thing. People could go to the beach, or they can go to the water park. And I understand from a business perspective, it's difficult to run a business. And I just wish that there was a way, whether incentives or something, to keep something going. Because we're a destination mecca for vacationers and for locals, and they have families, and it would be wonderful. It would be sad to see it just go.
I think the big thing that was pointed out a little earlier is a significant portion of those users of that park have been siphoned off by the large improvements in the amusement structures that have been made inside of all the campgrounds. That's a significant portion of your traffic. I mean, think about Ocean Lakes 5 years ago. Think about Ocean Lakes now in terms of their amusement structures. They have a whole entire water park with brand new slides and brand new water, and they have an arcade and ice cream. They have everything pretty much over there in a smaller scale, but you don't have to leave the park to get to it. And like we heard from the concerns of the neighbors about traffic and things like that, you would see why a lot of those people want to stay. Does that harm or hurt those individuals who would like to continue to use it? Yes, but when there's not enough participation for a use, it's just like if the town was running a parks and recreation program that had a basketball program and they needed a certain number of people and half the people stopped playing and they wanted to go play in the Horry County League. could you afford to keep maintaining it yourself as a town? And it becomes a financial decision at that point. So it's a tough decision. I too have been to the water park many times, and that's unfortunately the situation we're in now. Is there's just not enough demand to keep that water park open as it stands. But we will evaluate, with my promise that we will evaluate a smaller recreational amenity that may be available for those. I can't promise anything, but we will look at it. I'll show you what it would look like, and then we can talk about what that would cost. Because that's unfortunately that's something that the people that I'm doing the design for have to take into consideration. How much is it going to cost to build? How much is it going to cost to maintain? And a poorly maintained structure is going to actually hurt the town a lot more than something else that gets built that's better maintained.
If I can ask with your other projects, how often do you have a planned amusement as far as development?
Very rarely in terms of, no, it's very seldom. I mean, I've worked on many plans before on the public side, as I used to be the planning director for Horry County. So I've worked on those as a private side. There's not a lot of people putting those in right now. Most people are scaling back. Typically, the only people that are incorporating amusements that are available to their internal customers. Every major campground that goes in has been incorporated them. Every high-end resort, apartment or condo complex incorporates amenities for their residents, movie theaters, large pools, spas, weight rooms that keep you in the facility. Back in the day, you would go to a small motel on the beach and you basically had your room and you had your lobby, right? And if you were lucky, they had a place for you to eat like a continental breakfast or something. But pretty much after that, you either went to the beach or you went to putt-putt or you had to go to an amusement. You didn't do it all on one property. And over the years, more and more of those hotel resorts have become just that, a resort. And by doing that, they've tried to capture more of that revenue internal, which unfortunately leaves things like this water park out to pasture because there's not as many end users. So while there's still a lot of people going there, there's nowhere near as many as it needs to be to make that thing survive, as it stands.
Well, I hear you comment multiple times as far as other developments and small resorts adding amusement and all this stuff, and I understand the part of putting amusement together in an area to attract them to stay in the general area, but it seems like there's still a demand for amusement. So in the development of this piece, considering that it was already an amusement plan, was there any plan of leaving any type of amusement in it?
As of right now, there isn't. As I stated earlier, I'll be glad to talk to the people that are looking at maintaining and operating this, see if there's a way to incorporate that design, and I'll bring that back before the next meeting. But I don't know that, what it will be or how it will be or what it will look like. If you've got ideas, Sabrina's got my contact, and I'm more than willing to listen, because if it's a good idea, whether I can incorporate it in this or another project, I'll be more than happy to listen. So.
Any other questions on the commission? Thank you, sir. We appreciate the information.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sabrina? I know there's a lot of people probably wanting to ask a million questions. We will be having a public hearing in 30 days, 1st of December. So you will be able to participate a little more readily than this forum. But I will open it up to public comments again. So if anybody has any comments, please share them with us.
I would still.
Yeah. You got to come up here. We got to record it.
Again, my name is Nick Pappas. Our development is 159 homes, and we are at the very back side of this development. Anything that affects our community and our development tremendously. There was a comment made that the traffic will go out Sandy Lane. That's not going to happen. They're going to go to Sandy Lane, go to the left, and come right through our development to get down to the lower end of Glens Bay, to get on bypass, and further down to get on 707. So the majority of that traffic is not going to go stop sign to stop sign to stop sign to stop sign on Sandy Lane. Sandy Lane is maintained by you guys, Surfside. We maintain ours. So the total expense of that is ours. Has nothing to do with you guys on that. So if we allow it to change, we need to have something in place to help us offset the cost of maintaining our roads. Every 5 years is about how often we get used of sealing them now. With the additional traffic, that's probably going to cut down to 3 years. And that's going to be a real problem for our homeowners. The water issue is second. Everything that drains off of there is going to flood our community. There's no way to stop it. It already happens now. And when you go in and that little bit of grassy stuff they're putting in there, that's for show. It's not going to help. So the two issues I've got is the traffic to our highways and the flooding, which 159 homeowners have to share the flooding. It has nothing to do with you guys because y'all don't own any of that. Surfside takes no responsibility for it. It's all Wade County and our homeowners. And our roads are private.
Thank you, sir.
Harry Cohen, 10th Avenue North. I'm glad that picture's still up there. I don't see much green. I see a lot of black. I see a lot of orange. A little bit of light green with the commercial areas on. We got enough commercial areas that are vacant now. So take that out of your picture. If you allow this to happen, and it's in your ballpark, that flea market next door will be even a bigger one than this. There's going to be 1,000 people who live there. We have less than 4,000 people who live in this small town. That will be 25% of the people who live here will be renting. There are people who rent who don't care about their environment, how they keep their places. Small town, folks. This is a small town. It's zoned for commercial. It's in your hands. You don't have to let them do this. Oh, I understand the businessman wants to cut his losses. I get that. And the water park is probably gone forever. But 4-story buildings? You gotta be kidding me. This is a Surfside. You cannot allow this to happen. If you want to make it R1, maybe we'll make it R1. He's not going to sell his property if you own R1. Oh, well. Honestly, we got to think about us. And I feel sorry for business people. You know, it's not working out that well. He's got another water park up in Myrtle Beach. Probably doing a little bit better. Who wants to cut his losses? We have to think about the residents of this town. Not about an outsider who wants to make some money or try to recover his losses. Now, I feel sorry for people who lose, but that's a gamble. That's his gamble. Look at all the parking. Our regulations right now, if you want to have a rental house, 1 parking space for 1 bedroom. No, they don't want that. Two bedrooms, 1.5. We don't have regulate. We don't have ordinances like that. We're not going to change the way we are, right? You get it? This is our town. It's a small town. It's not Myrtle Beach. It's not Charleston or Mount Pleasant or even North Myrtle Beach. Folks, please. We almost let that storage facility come in here, and we got that stopped. And one of the things they might do is put storage in that commercial. So make sure you zone this correctly, if you change it at all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I will close the public comment section and open it for commission comments.
I'll start. It's great to see a lot of folks out here. I think knock on your neighbors' doors before the next meeting, get some more input. Just to be candid, transparent, I look at anything like this through a couple different lenses. Financial, how's it mesh with the ordinances? What's the community involvement and the infrastructure? I'd love to be proven wrong, but the finances of this look terrible. I see a 36,000 increase in property taxes, H taxes from amusement sales go down, and town services, the same that we all pay, is going to go up about 400,000. May drop down. Let's call it go up 300,000 because there's some common cared for items such as blacktop. That is negative gearing. You don't run a business that way. You don't run a town that way. That's how towns get upside down. So unless there's an alternative to drive revenue as opposed to driving expenses, what that does, every single one of those individual units is an expense to the town. And the income we get off of that will not offset that expense. That's math. Can't avoid that. From an ordinances, I get that there's flexibility. What was presented was a height increase beyond our ordinance, setback shorter than our ordinances, parking that didn't mesh up with our ordinances, and there was a planning committee vote and a 2015 town council vote that says anything on 17 business should be a business. There's a whole litany of reasons for that. That offsets what having residences do to this town. Residents like that. Minimal income residents, meaning minimal income driving residents from a tax perspective. So I think from an ordinance perspective, if they could be changed and flexible, it'd be great to see them be flexible within the current confines that we've got. Community, listening to every piece of feedback. Thank you, wrote it all down. Infrastructure, I'm dubious. I sat, granted, this is less than scientific, probably 20 minutes over the weekend and 15 minutes last week at the intersection by Dairy Queen. And it was raining, miserable, not a whole lot of people out at the flea market. Cars were stacked up going both ways on frontage, and people couldn't get out of Dairy Queen more often than not. So I don't feel that the infrastructure is there to support this. And unless there's a plan to address that, I think that creates additional issues. So I just showed my whole hand, but I'd rather be transparent with everyone involved. So you can either address those thoughts or add to them. Thanks.
Okay, everything Alex said, and you know, this is a very slippery slope. This proposal violates at least half a dozen town laws and ordinances that we put in place to keep this the family beach. Are we going to set a precedent of saying we can throw all those policies away because here's how you get around it? You pack them all in a hood and you can do anything you want. And all those policies don't matter. I think it's a very dangerous precedent to circumvent every half a dozen town ordinances by packing it in a hood and approving it. That's all I have.
I'll keep it quick. I know it's everyone's probably getting hungry. Okay, so I don't see any way around not doing some sort of infrastructure improvement with this. I've actually gone to Hudson's for the past few weekends with family. We had some family in town, and they're like frequent flea markets. And it's usually always at least one cycle, if not two, at that light. If I'm hitting it at inopportune times of the day, which is fine if that's what needs to happen, and you know the town needs to fix its infrastructure to grow, then so be it. My question to you, and I don't need an answer for this tonight, would be: does the project work without 4 buildings? Can the commercial piece be pushed back further into the planned development? Or is that just kind of a game killer? The commercial frontage along the frontage road seems like a minimum to get something to work. I know you said you mirrored it off the parcel, but it doesn't really match up to the Hudson's parcel or maybe some of the other parcels. Now, I also understand that I don't think that we need to keep it commercial all the way back either. I mean, I think that there needs to be a reasonable expectation of that too. I mean, at some point, yeah, some of that probably would be better serviced as residential. I don't know what that mix is, but that would be a question that I have for y'all is, you know, does it have to be 4 buildings to work, or is that also something flexible with the design? And I'm gonna also echo the height concerns and the population concerns. I don't see how this doesn't cause stress or even stretch marks on public services and our current town infrastructure. That's all I have.
And I don't have too much to add, but it wouldn't just be saying some of the same things over. I am very encouraged and thankful to see as many people here in the room tonight. We often have very few people in the room, so we appreciate all of you being here. Even the young lady who was, I think she left maybe, that her mom said she was nervous. It's great to see kids in here as well. So we appreciate very much that you're here, and remember that we are going to be over the next months discussing the comprehensive plan for the future of the town. So please take interest and be sure to show up for that as well.
I'm going to echo everything that Woody said. Thank you all for coming out. It's rare that we get to see, more than a few people. So it's nice to know and hear people's input. I'm not going to comment on the plan. I know that, I'm the middle child of 7 kids, and I try to take the perspective of others to see, okay, if I were in these shoes, what decisions would I make? This is a difficult situation for everybody involved, and but I'm just grateful that you came out, and please show up again. So thank you.
So like the rest of them said, appreciate everybody coming out. Really glad to see everybody here. Actually, we are the family beach, so your input and feedback is very important to us. I know I've received a lot of comments from folks that says that it doesn't matter for you to show up at these meetings, but it does matter. So as members up here, we definitely want to represent Surfside in the best way. And if we can make adjustments to that or go a different route and stuff like that, that's what we want to be able to do that, your feedback and comments. So please continue that, and just make sure you show up on the next meeting as well, so we can continue the discussion and make sure we make the best decisions. So thank you.
Thank you. So we've been working on the comp plan for going on a year. And some of the biggest concerns that we've talked about and we've read, and obviously it's an older plan and we're going to have to revise it, but there's some consistencies in that comp plan. Congestion, density, optimal land use, stormwater, preserving our height limits, infrastructure pressures, compatible uses. And I just wrote this down, entertainment replacement. I mean, I'm a guy who's loved this water park from day one. I had 2 kids, and that was the highlight of their Christmas, is getting their water park passes in their stocking. So, Scott was talking about, can you do both? Can you have a captive audience and still have a water park? I don't know. I thought it was a neat idea. I mean, you throw it out there and see what happens. But there's a lot here that kind of works against our comp plan, and I wish it didn't, because I love the water park. But that's all I got. We will be here hopefully in 30 days for a public hearing. Please come by. Please participate. We'd love to hear your input. And I would think Mark and his guys maybe not love it, but you like the input. You know how our citizens are thinking, so maybe you can go back and bring something different. But that being said, I'll motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?